Okay, colleagues, I'm going to start the meeting. If you could all turn your cameras on, please, I'd be most grateful. That way we can see that you're all actually at the meeting. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Eltham Bournemouth Town Council virtual meeting. Before we start, there are a number of housekeeping items to announce. This Town Council meeting is being recorded and is open to the public, who will have an opportunity to take part in a Q&A under item 9 on the agenda. The meeting is chaired by the Mayor and is hosted by the clerk, who would admit people to the meeting and can also mute or remove participants at the request of the Chair. I'm confident this won't be necessary. Please respect the Office of Council and remember that the required standards of courteous conduct and discussion are the same whether in remote or face-to-face meetings. As in our regular meetings, please ensure your comments are made via the Chair. Should you wish to speak, please raise your hand clearly. The clerk will alert me should I not notice your hand. In order to keep this meeting concise, please be brief and stick to the subject debated. Do not introduce matters unrelated to the issue. Please only speak if you have something additional to add. Should a new resolution come to vote, the town clerk will type the wording into the Zoom chat function to allow clarity. This will not apply to motions that are already on the agenda. If you don't catch my eye or the clerk's eye, please message via the chat function that you wish to speak. Voting will be done by an alphabetic roll of councillors. Members will be called to vote one by one by the clerk, who will tally the votes and announce the result. Please vote by stating clearly for, against, or abstain. This voting procedure is based on the National Association of Local Councils publication entitled Holding Remote Meetings. Members may not temporarily leave the meeting, nor should they during proceedings. Please mute yourself when not speaking. This helps keep background noise to a minimum, which will improve everybody's ability to hear the discussions. I'd like to welcome everybody here. I can see you all. I presume that you can all hear what's going on. Now, moving on to item 1 of the agenda, apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're a little bit crackly, but otherwise we can hear you.
Okay.
Happy to say that now we have a full house of members, so no apologies. Everybody's here.
Right. Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda: to receive declarations of interest from councillors on items on the agenda, to receive written requests for dispensations for declarable interests, and to grant any requests for dispensation as appropriate. No? Okay. Item number 3, to approve and adopt the minutes of the full council meeting held on the 25th of November 2020. Can we adopt the minutes? Has everybody agreed?
Agreed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now, before we move on to item number 4 on the agenda, so I just want to add one extra item. This is the closest full council meeting to Holocaust Memorial Day, which falls on the 27th of January. As the son of a Holocaust survivor, it is important to me and other first-generation survivors to keep the memory of the Holocaust alive so that future generations can learn from this terrible period of the 20th century. Holocaust Memorial Day encourages remembrance in a world scarred by genocide. We remember the 6 million Jewish men, women, and children murdered during the Holocaust, alongside the millions of other people killed under Nazi persecution and in genocides that followed in places such as Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and Darfur. We also remember the current suffering of the Uyghurs in northwest China. Their alleged treatment by the Communist government of China could be defined as a crime against humanity. My message to the Chinese authorities is to remind them that freedom of religion is a universal human right that must be respected. 27th of January marks the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi death camp. The Holocaust threatened the fabric of civilization. Genocide must still be resisted every day. Prejudice and the language of hatred must be challenged by us all. Anyone can be a racist, and anyone can be a victim of racism. You don't have to be white to be a racist, nor do you need to be a person of colour to be a victim of racism. The world has not yet learned the lessons of the Holocaust. The last recorded anti-Semitic incident in Elstree and Boreham Wood took place on the 21st of December, a mere 3 weeks ago. In the United States, we witnessed the fallout from the shooting of George Floyd, an unarmed black man, by a white police officer, followed by riots and further deaths of protesters. Racism and discrimination against people of colour or faith is still a huge problem, not just in the United States, but also here in the UK and in Europe. We have also recently witnessed the terrible scenes at the US Capitol. White supremacists, anti-Semites, QAnon, the Proud Boys, and members of other extremist organisations invaded the US Capitol, the heart of American democracy. Many of these people were encouraged by social media posts. Social media is a very dangerous tool when misused. Using social media to proliferate hate is no different to the tactics used by Hitler to promote his hateful ideology. The use of social media as a weapon must stop. I call on all of us to learn the lessons of the Holocaust. Never judge a book by its colour. Our skin tone, sexuality, or faith is irrelevant. We are all equal human beings. I hope and pray that 2021 will bring an end to racism and discrimination. May the memory of victims of genocide worldwide be a blessing. Thank you very much. Now, colleagues, I'm just going to move on to item number 4 of the agenda. That's the Finance, Budget and Precept Demand Report for 2021-22. To consider 1, adoption of budget for 2021-22 following budget setting process in autumn-winter 2020, including any suggested amendments made by GMC on the 11th of January 2021. Could I ask the clerk just to elaborate on what we agreed, what was agreed at the GMC on Monday?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you can hear me. Difficult to follow your speech there with such seemingly mundane matters. The 2 substantive amendments were made by the General Management Committee on Monday to the budgets that you have before you this evening. Those were, first of all, with regards to item 1683106. I don't expect you to look this up right this second, just for the record, which is the hall income anticipated for Fairway Hall. And it was agreed to reduce the projected income from £35,000 to £20,000, decrease of £15,000, on the rationale that the COVID pandemic was likely to continue to disrupt the use of Fairway Hall in 2021. I'll do these both together rather than you decide them one at a time, as there may be other amendments that you make this evening. The second was with regard to item 4166, which is 401, cost code 401, football marketing. If you remember, this item was discussed at the last full council meeting, brought up by Councillor Richard Butler. Previously, this was a grant to Boreham Wood Football Club, and it was suggested by the General Management Committee that this be recoded to a 104 administration budget on the rationale that the football club would not be asked to apply for a grant in future, but rather the General Management Committee would decide on the use of that money on a year-by-year basis for football marketing. So takes it out of the grants code altogether. There were 2 other points. All of these I emailed to members earlier today. There were 2 other points which don't actually alter the budget you have before you, but for clarity and completeness, I'll mention now. The first was that, in addition, a discussion and a vote was carried out regarding the Community Grants Award, and it was agreed to keep this at £10,000 for next year for the time being. Some members sought to increase that budget, but also it was noted that the council would comply with any government rulings on public sector pay awards in relation to staff salaries for the year. That concludes the report about the budget you have before you.
Thank you very much. Are there any? Can we agree on the adoption of the budget? Is everybody agreed on that? Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Item number 4.2. There's a setting of town
Sorry,
council.
Mr. Mayor, just I saw Councillor Richard Butler.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Butler.
Had his finger up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Town Clerk, for just allowing me to have a moment to speak here. Mr. Mayor, actually, we want to have a proper vote on the adoption of the budget, mainly because of the fact that I can't support this budget. Do you want me to elaborate? Am I allowed?
Yes, please.
Yep. Okay. The reason is, although we did have some amendments made, we did go to a vote on GMC regarding the community grants side of the budget, where actually my group did feel that the grant actually had been cut by half. So actually, you've halved the community grant side of the budget. We appreciate also within this budget, there are areas that actually the council could currently be making savings. We look at the Town Crier magazine at the moment, where we've called upon in the past, my group, for that to go online for the moment, because yet again, we have a budget that is being supported by moving monies around and actually taking monies out of reserve to balance the budget. So we feel uncomfortable in actually supporting this budget. So actually, Mr. Mayor, I'd kindly like to ask, once Councillor Newmark's had a chance to speak, that actually we do take a vote on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think it's important we have a debate on the budget. It's possibly one of the single most important things we discuss at full council on an annual basis. And I do think it's important that the public see we don't just agree it on the nod, even though we have obviously discussed it at GMC for various reasons this year. That only happened a couple of days before this evening's meeting. So I do welcome the fact that we are having a debate on the budget. My primary concern at level of principle, and it's a similar concern to that which I expressed last year, is that this budget is effectively a deficit budget. It's a budget that is imbalanced to the tune of some £45,000. It's a budget that requires this authority once again to dip into its reserves. And as Councillor Butler outlined, and I believe other colleagues want to comment on, the reality is this is a budget in which we could make efficiencies and savings. Now, I appreciate that our group called for greater expenditure in some areas, but that's because it seems to us that a budget in which actually in real terms we're reducing the amount we spend on community grants by 2/3 from the current year's total allocation of 30k during this terrible sort of COVID period. And yet we spend sort of nearly £40,000 on a magazine. We spend thousands of pounds on civic regalia and so on. Seems to me a budget in which some of the priorities are indeed misaligned. But my primary concern is that as an authority, we should not be budgeting at a deficit year after year after year. This will whittle down our reserves, and it is simply storing up problems in the long term. This isn't prudent financial planning, and where there are efficiencies to be made, I believe they should be made. We should be having a balanced budget in front of us this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Is there anyone else that would like to add something to this debate? I'm happy to go to vote. Is Councillor Strack happy to go to vote on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if
I see Councillor
sorry, Councillor Parnell, Chair of GMC, is Councillor.
No, I'm happy for it to go to vote. I was saying that Councillor Kaza wanted to speak.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kaza.
Right, as a banker, I don't want to repeat what Jeremy said. We should not have a deficit budget, and we're wasting money on town crier in this day and age where practically everybody has access to our website and also the information about what all the town councillors do and what the town council does. They can as well look it up on the website. And
Thank you, Councillor Kazza. I did ask you in my notes that if you want to say something, please add and not repeat what somebody else has said.
I know, I'm just
This has
expanding
already
the
been
point.
said but you're repeating what Councillor Butler
I've heard
said.
this lecture before. I'm only expanding the point that in this day and age, when most newspapers have gone from printed material to a website, we should go on to website. And above all, every year I've been asking only one question, that we don't hear of any efficiencies in the town management administration. We seem to be thinking of spending more and more money, but I can't hear of any staff reduction, anything that smacks of efficiency. That's one thing that I would like to see in a town budget.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kazza. If I could remind members, if they could try and to keep the meeting going, if they could try and, when they speak, just add something different and just not repeat what other councillors have said. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak on this motion? Hugh, can we go to vote on this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the proposal, well, I need a proposer and a seconder to support the motion. As set out.
Okay, so is a proposed. So Councillor Strack is proposing. Would Councillor Parnell second this motion?
Yes, sorry, yes.
So
in which case, the budget as set out before you with those two amendments from GMC, which I'm not going to repeat, they're a matter of record, and I've sent you the details. And
that's agreed. So we are going to be voting on the adoption of the budget 2021-22 to include the amendments made at the GMC meeting that took place on Monday.
That's correct. Do you need me to type that into Zoom or is everybody?
No, I think it's understood.
I think that should be crystal clear. So we'll start off. I'll do actually the mayor and the deputy mayor, then I'll run through alphabetically because that's how the names are listed on my sheets before me. So Councillor Rubner, are you for?
I'm for.
Councillor Parnell?
For.
Councillor Butchins? No, you're muted, but once again, I saw you said for. You're muted. No. Try not to press the space bar if you click yourself off mute.
Right, I'm unmuted and I'm voting for the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Butchins. Councillor Chalice?
Sorry, I was expecting you to call Councillor Butler first. Against, thank you.
Councillor Butler?
Against.
Councillor Collins?
Against.
Councillor Eni?
For.
Councillor Kazza?
Against.
Councillor Lawrence?
For.
Councillor Newmark?
Against.
Strack?
For.
Councillor Turner?
For.
Councillor Vince?
Against.
So the voting took place along party lines, and so that motion is carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Just in terms of efficiency, before voting, would everybody mind unmuting themselves? That way we can go a lot faster through the voting, and then just muting afterwards. Item number 4/2, setting of council precept demand 2021-22. As follows, as recommended by the General Management Council. Could I ask the clerk once again just to explain briefly the precept?
I'm happy to do so, Mr. Mayor. It should be relatively straightforward, especially after the budget's just been agreed. So the precept amounts reflects any increases in the tax base that have happened throughout the year, which is surprisingly small in Elstree and Borehamwood. As I've incidentally, just to clarify something that Councillor Newmark mentioned earlier when he said that the figures had only been received or been looked at the meeting on Monday. Actually, the draft budget was supplied to all members in mid-December. You recall there was an email by that from me in which I asked you to have a conversation about it in the intervening time, given the time restrictions we had. Looking at the tax base, as you can see, it's risen only by a very marginal amount, and so has had quite a small effect upon us. In 2020-21, the tax base, these are the numbers of people in Elstree and Boreham Wood who are eligible for council tax payments, was 13,351.7. Now in 2021-22, that number's risen just to 13,397.6. It's a very marginal increase. We've represented a 0% increase in terms of precept demand. So that reflects a £36.99 yearly call on the taxpayer from Elstree and Boreham Wood for all of the town council's services. Unlike other authorities, we don't receive any other money from central government. This is the sum of our income plus any other income we make from hall bookings or allotments, fees and ticket sales and so on. So last year, the national average, I understand, of council precept increases for all parish and town councils was 4%, which is the lowest it has been for some time, according to the National Association of Local Councils. So because of the COVID-19 situation, it was felt prudent to keep the figure at a 0% increase for 21-22, which would make a precept demand of £495,000, £577.22. So members are asked to agree that some, unless you want to go to vote.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Butler, followed by Councillor Vince. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, the Labour Group will be supporting a 0% increase in the council tax this year, as we understand the pressures everyone is under from the difficult and challenging year. However, we also realise that our income must match our expenditure at least, as we keep taking from reserves to balance the books. This is not sustainable and will lead us into having to make some very difficult choices in the very near future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councillor Butler's statements there. At this point, I would yet again ask that we reconsider the town crier and how much money we spent on this publication. This is a publication that goes out across the borough, but so many times we hear that it's been put in the blue boxes outside people's house. So, you know, let's save the money on the town crier. Let's see if we can go.
Councillor Vince, we've already voted the budget through, so it's too late. We can't change this. We've voted the budget through already, so I don't think this is relevant now in the full council meeting.
Okay.
Are there any other comments to be made? Do members want to go to vote, or can we agree or not agree?
No, Rebecca.
Councillor Chalice.
Councillor Rebecca Chalice got a...
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just wondering to have some clarification, please, because sorry, I'm trying to find which number it's under. Just about the schools' laptop, because I understand that the government are helping supply schools with schools with laptops. So I was just wondering, please, if we know how much demand there is for the council to provide these, please.
So, Councillor Strack.
Can I get the figures to you tomorrow, please? I had a meeting, there was a meeting of heads on Tuesday, and they will send to us the full requirements that they have for each of the local schools.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Councillor Strack.
So, group leaders, do we want to go to vote on the precept? Councillor
Yes.
Butler. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I do believe though on the precept, we should show clearness on this, and we should still record the vote, even though my group is in favour of a 0% increase, as stated. I think we should at least go through a vote on this to show people exactly how members are voting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can we go to vote on this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will record a vote if members request recorded votes. A recorded vote wasn't requested on the previous item, so that won't be included in the minutes, but you've just requested a recorded vote on this item, so I will include that in the minutes. So I'll do this in exactly the same order that last time, just for clarity. Apologise if it's not quite alphabetically correct, but it'll be easier for me to log these. So the motion before members is to approve the precept demand as set out in the council papers before you. Yeah, I couldn't have made it any clearer. Councillor Rubner, are you for, against, or abstain from that motion?
I'm for the motion.
Councillor Parnell,
For. Thank you.
Councillor Butchins,
I'm happy to support the motion, so I'm for it.
for the motion. Councillor Chalice,
For.
Councillor Butler,
For.
Councillor Collins. No.
For the motion, please.
Councillor Any,
For.
Councillor Kaza,
Or
Councillor Lawrence,
For.
Councillor Newmark,
For.
Councillor Strack,
For.
Mr Turner,
For.
Councillor Vince.
For.
So a unanimous vote will be recorded in the minutes.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Item 4.3, the approval of recommended earmarked reserve transfers within the 2020-21 budget to transfer £6,250 for election reserve, and B, to transfer £1,000 to the van replacement reserve. Can we approve that? Group leaders, we happy with that?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
happy with that, Mr Mayor.
Yes, I'll take that as read. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll take that as
Thank you. Item number 5, outside bodies. To receive reports from members serving on outside bodies as follows. Members are asked to limit reports to a maximum of 3 minutes each. We'll start with the coronavirus report by the Mayor detailing actions taken during the pandemic. So most of us, I'm sure, are pleased to see the back of 2020. This pandemic has dominated our lives since last March, affecting not only our health and well-being, but also our jobs and our children's education. My heart goes out to those residents who lost loved ones to COVID last year, with wishes for a speedy and full recovery to those who are suffering from this horrible virus. I've continued my association with gratitude. I had the honour of drawing the gratitude Christmas raffle just before Christmas, obviously, on Christmas Eve. I attended, as did other members, the Hanukkah lighting in the Bournemouth Shopping Park on the 13th of December, which was an amazing success. I'm really proud that the Town Council was one of the main sponsors of this fantastic event. I took part in the virtual Christmas switch-on event with the help of our neighbours from Albert Square, and my thanks to Dan Salter, the entertainment officer, for organising the switch-on. So thank you, Dan, for a great job there. Partnering with Bournemouth and Elstree Synagogue and the Studios Rotary Club, I was pleased to help coordinate an emergency drive to donate brand new underwear to be distributed to recently arrived refugees. I've personally delivered many of these parcels to refugees. Most of them come from Syria and Iraq, and the look of on their faces when they get these packages is absolutely amazing. So my thanks to the generosity of all those that went and bought brand new underwear for me to distribute. With the COVID-19 vaccine now being rolled out, there's a great deal of hope and cautious optimism as we enter 2021. My thanks go to the trustees of Allen Manor for providing their venue for use as a vaccination centre. I must also thank Councillor Pat Strack for coordinating and Govia Thameslink for providing additional car parking spaces to enable increased capacity at Allen Manor. My main COVID message to all of us is to stay home, protect the NHS and save lives, even if you've received your vaccine. Thank you. We move on to the outside bodies. We'll start with Fairway Hall and the Town Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't prepared substantial reports about Fairway Hall. Any questions from members about its status, I'll be happy to report those. In terms of just 2 items of minor bad news, we have had a leak, or the leak in the hall at Fairway Hall has got progressively worse over time, and we've sought 3 independent quotes to repair that a leak, the cheapest of which is in the region of just over £2,000, which is a significant sum of money, but believe that work is going to need to take place. The other item is with regards to the new floor that has been laid, perhaps because of the lack of use of the hall, some gapping, some splits between some of the wood panels in the floor have started to appear, and so we're seeking to have those remedied with the installer, and possibly to install moisture monitors within Fairway Hall to make sure we can keep notice of the levels of moisture within the excellent building there. Another item with regard to Fairway Hall is that we had some initial inquiries from Hertsmere Borough Council and the Fire Brigade, who carried out an assessment of the hall to consider using the site as a vaccination centre for a period of 9 months, from the times of, I believe it was something like 8:30 in the morning to 8:30 in the evening. To date, the National Health Service hasn't followed through with that request, but I am seeking to make communication with them to find out whether they still want to use the hall. Independently, some other potential hirers have come forward to seek to use Fairway Hall at an ongoing basis. And what I propose to do is to wait maybe a week or so until we can ascertain exactly from the NHS. I don't want to, scupper our chances there, to see whether they definitely don't want to use Fairway Hall, given the government's intentions to have as many vaccination centres as possible. And it seems certainly to me that Fairway Hall, given its car parking spaces and the fact that it serves the north of Boreham Wood very, very well, would be an ideal centre for a vaccination centre to take place. So I think I won't say more than that about Fairway Hall, unless there are any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the town clerk? Okay, so we'll move on to Leeming Aycliffe Big Local. I haven't received anything from Donna Inwood. I don't know if Councillor Vince has.
Yes, I've got a short update, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
The Big Local are still waiting for an update on discussions with the Planning Commission regarding the bike track in Meadow Park. They have donated money for computers for schools for children that are without computers. And they have also donated money to Community First to help residents with any urgent need that may arise during this time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vince, could I just ask, do you know which schools received money and how much?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions to Councillor Vince regarding her report? Okay, we'll move on. Elton Broad Museum Group, Councillor Collins. Councillor Collins.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, much hasn't changed since the coronavirus pandemic that has decimated our town and all over the world. But what actually has happened is this: in most recent time, the museum is trying to go about to collect issues such as photos, journals, and items that relate to this coronavirus thing that has transformed people's life in most recent time. With regards to like photographs and other issues, if one has some journal or so, it will be most heartily welcome and appreciated by the museum. And I will be able to update the folks about how things are going, because things haven't changed much. And if the general public has anything to donate with regards to photos or journals and other items to show how people's lives have been affected during this pandemic, they can easily get in touch with Councillor Budgin and myself, and then we'll be able to go about and disseminate such information and other issues to the museum, and we'll keep the public informed. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. Has anybody got any questions to Councillor Collins? Okay, we'll move on. Back to Councillor Vince, Bournemouth and Elstree Twin Town Association. Councillor Vince.
I haven't got a report on the Twin Town Association, only I think it's probably the right time to mention that, you know, as we all know, that the Twin Town started with the idea to repair the damage after the war to relationships between our countries. And now after Brexit, it seems even more important that we forge ahead and build even better relationships with Offenburg, Fontenay and Rose, you know, so if the town council can offer the Twin Town Association a little more help this year, I think it'd be important to forge ahead with those relationships. And when all this is over, I look forward to visiting both of those towns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vince. We move on to the Elstree, Bournemouth and District Community Association. Councillor Parnell.
Yes, sorry. This is the Centre Manager's report for 2020. It's Tony Batterson. Overview. 2020 has been, by anybody's standard, the most extraordinary year. At Allen Manor, it has been no different. As I write this in my temporary office at home, whilst looking back at a year of no major bookings, I look ahead with total optimism that once again in 2021, our venue will come alive to the sound of our regular customers and major functions. March the 17th, our Prime Minister announced that to curb the spread of coronavirus, England will go into lockdown. Our Chancellor then announced the furlough scheme. And so my deputy Sam and my caretaking team were furloughed. However, we took the opportunity to commence a programme of redecoration of the manor. Our resident handyman, Kevin, has painted every room and we have laid new laminate flooring in the downstairs room of the manor house. We have also replaced some of the curtains with blinds, which are far more practical. COVID secure, we took significant steps to ensure that our venue was COVID secure. Hand gel is provided in all rooms as well as the foyer area in both the hall and the manor house. A one-way system was developed by Michael, the head caretaker, to ensure customers entered and left the buildings by different entrances and exits. Access to toilets were restricted to one per person at a time, and a document detailing all of this was issued to all customers along with reduced room capacities. Gratitude. With the hall not being used, we opened up the small end of the hall for use by local charity Gratitude. They provide food for needy families and households and were with us until the end of the summer. The National Health Service. Normally during the course of a year, we host 3 blood donor clinics. This year we have hosted 7. And as our contribution to the National Health Service, we have hosted them free of charge. We were then approached by Fairbrook Medical Centre, who were looking for a venue to undertake flu vaccinations. And this we did during the end of the summer, beginning of autumn. August and September, the government relaxed the lockdown restrictions and some customers were able to return. Specifically, these were the support groups such as AA and GA and young children's groups such as Heartbeats. During this time, we had a major 3-day booking for the Bournemouth and Elstree United Synagogue. They maintained all the social distancing measures and cleaning regimes. Excuse me. It was very successful, and as a result, they meet each fortnight in the hall. The second lockdown. In November, we all experienced a second lockdown. However, the government guidelines changed to allow support groups and the children's groups to continue. In November, we permitted the National Health Service to set up a patients assessment centre where people who contacted their GP about coronavirus symptoms are sent to be seen by a doctor. This has been set up in the far end of the car park and entirely self-contained. Moving into tier 3 and then 4, our support groups continue to have their meetings. Into 2020, he said we awaited the first part of 2020 to assist the National Health Service, but we are now the vaccination hub for the National Health Service in Hertsmere. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parnell. Has anybody got any questions to Councillor Parnell? Okay, so we move on now to Councillor Rennie, Hertsmere, Menkat.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like every other charity in the country, 2020 was very, very tough for Hertsmere Menkat. However, they've continued to do their programs virtually through Zoom, their coffee morning and exercise classes. This month, they are planning for a Valentine week among their members to have a workshop, virtual workshop for members. And following that, they are sending workshop materials to their members. After that, they will teach them how to use the materials on Zoom. And they've continued to engage with their members. They've recently loaned 6 iPads to some of their members that can use the iPad, and they've been teaching how to use it on Zoom. Another thing is that they were very lucky this year to receive a donation from a company in Pottersburg, a donation of £1,500. The Hasme MENCAP will have their AGM next Monday on the 18th. So everybody is invited to join them. If you need the address, if you let me know, I will get them for you. Mr. Mayor, that's my report for Hasme MENCAP.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rennie. Does anybody have any questions to Councillor Rennie? Okay, we move on now to Alderman Country Park, Councillor Strack.
Aldenham Country Park, there are 3 things to report. One is that the footpath, the gates were due to be closed again on the 20th of January, and because there was an injunction keeping the ensuring that the gates would be kept open, Hertfordshire County Council and Liberty Lake Leisure Limited are still in discussions about footpath around the reservoir, and the gates will remain open until mid-February, and continued negotiations go on there. There are continuing negotiations going on between the Borough Council and Liberty Lake Leisure, and the footpath around the park, Aldenham Country Park Trust Limited and Herts County Council Rights of Way have as yet had no notification from the Planning Inspectorate about the registration of the footpath. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Strack. Are there any questions to Councillor Strack? Okay, we move on now to Maxwell Park Management Group, Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Due to the COVID restrictions, there has been no update since my previous report.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Now, first impressions, do I go to Councillor Parnell or Councillor Collins on this?
I have the report, yes.
Councillor Parnell.
Okay, meeting of the project board. Representatives of each organisation belonging to the First Impressions Initiative attended a meeting on the 16th of January 2020. Each member organisation now owns action points raised during that meeting, many of which are associated with the railway station. The coronavirus lockdown meant work on most of those action points had to be put on hold. However, some progress has been made, and we plan to hold a Zoom meeting of the project board in early February, now that we have started to receive information about the status of GTR Thameslink Passenger Benefit Fund. The Passenger Benefit Fund, on the 31st of July 2019 First Impressions, submitted a bid for the £80,000 of funding, which GRT Thameslink provisionally, allocated to Elstree and Boreham Wood as a way of saying sorry for the severe disruption caused by the introduction of new timetables in 2018. During our public consultation, local commuters requested key improvements. Network Rail told us that canopies over the stairs and the bridge are not feasible, and that cost to cover the gap on platform 1 would cost well over £100,000. I then prepared detailed proposals: more planting on the station forecourt, extra seating, electronic information kiosk in front of the station. On May the 29th, the PBF manager said, once we have more information, we will contact you. On October the 29th, I met at the station with Patrick Ladbury, GTR stakeholder manager, the new PBF project manager, and the 2 members of the Groundworks Trust, who I had on site on March the 13th. We met again by Zoom on January the 5th. Progress is now being made on the proposals I received in March from Groundworks Trust to place a large shrubs in planters. I continue to ask when this and other planting proposed will be done and how much it will cost. Extra seating, I was told on the 4th of January that as many as 10 benches will be placed on platforms. Most of these are now installed. I continue to ask whether other seating requested in 2019 will be installed, and if so, where and when will this be done and how much will it cost? An electronic information kiosk in front of the station. Last week, and again on the 11th of January, I was told that GTR Thameslink has now decided that the kiosk, which I proposed following an on-site meeting in February, is permitted under terms of the PBF. Since we do not know how much our grant GTR Thameslink has decided it will spend on the two projects described above, I do not know yet how much additional match funding might be required. We should know within weeks. The path of doom at the station. Following early discussions with HeartCC, I met on site December the 7th with engineers who are now looking at the measures could be taken to try to reduce the number of people who follow the path from the station and then either across Station Road where there is no safe crossing area, or who then walk across the bus lanes to join the main pedestrian route to and from the station. The engineers attended the Zoom meeting with Groundworks Trust on the 5th of January and are now preparing proposals. Opening of the secure cycle hub. In October, Mayor Rubner attended a ceremony to mark the opening of a new cycle hub. The hub was funded with £180,000 from the Department for Transport and £20,000 from local councils. That's my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Councillor Butler, I just want to comment two things. First of all, that some of the new seating is put right by the gap where the rain goes in. So that £100,000 could, we could do with them filling the gap. The other thing I want to say is that commuters leaving the station going to Boreham Wood, either down Theobald Street or down Shenley Road, very dangerous. Crossing Station Road is dangerous and getting through the car park is dangerous. So I look forward to some sort of improvement to allow Boreham Wood residents to get home safely on foot. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not actually related to the train station, but it is a first impressions thing. It was brought to my attention only the other day, and I'd like Councillor Parnell to take this back to first impressions. The flags that were hung up on the lampposts down the village, they've been up there for some time now. Has there been a risk assessment to see how those flags are being held up with the wire rope? Well, it's not a wire rope, it's a banding strip. So can we get an up-to-date assessment on those to make sure that they're safe still, and also if they're going to be replaced at any time soon? Knowing that we've got other things going on, it might be a nice idea to celebrate the heroes around there. So maybe we could look at something there, and maybe it could be an idea to do that as a first impressions thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Are there any other comments to Councillor, questions to Councillor Parnell?
I just need to ask Richard. Do you mean along with the posts, right along Shenry Road?
Yeah, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the lamppost. If you look at the lamppost, we had film things put up through the village there. The ones now have been there for some time. For instance, the Christmas lights obviously come and go, and we look at the strength of those lampposts, but these things have been there now for some time, and I appreciate they have been replaced in the past with more modern ones and so forth, but they have been there for some time. So it'd be good to know the wearability, the safety of them, and obviously if they're going to be replaced, maybe we can make a recommendation from the town that actually we celebrate the heroes. Maybe we can put some images up there of, doctors, nurses, local organisations, stuff like that, to really celebrate our town and the achievements that they've all had involved in this pandemic. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions for Councillor Parnell? Okay, so we'll move on now to item number 6 on the agenda, accounts for payment. To confirm the payment of accounts as approved as follows. It's in front of you on your agendas, the amounts. Voucher 256, 12th of November, 30,615.39. Voucher 266, 3rd of December, 10,743.82. And voucher 284, 15th of December, £51,131.33. They're all on the attached document that comes with the agenda. Are we all agreed on those accounts for payment? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll get in there quick. Just to point out, voucher number 245, Cally Hill School. It's a replacement of a damaged cheque. I think this is an indication that this authority really does now need to start aiming to get away from cheque payments and actually look at more cashless and checklist payments. And this is a prime example as to a reason why. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Hugh, is there a reason why the town council continues to use cheques?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, this, funny enough, is I myself raised the General Management Committee only on Monday.
Yes.
But especially it's been brought to light in view of the last few months when we've been, the requirement to get two separate councillors to sign cheques has been ever more difficult because of the fact that we operate so virtually these days. No, there's no reason why we can't move with the approval of our auditors and their blessing that we're doing everything in the appropriate manner and with the appropriate guarantees and fidelity guarantees in place. I would very much like us to move to internet payments for cheques and to have two signatory councillors sign off a list of those for officers to process online rather than for cheques to be written. There is, it's an historical anomaly, if you like, of local councils that cheques seem to be the popular way of performing transactions. But yes, no, I really welcome us, and it would be far more efficient for us to move to that with the appropriate safeguards in place, together with the appropriate approval from our auditors that the procedures that we do put in place adhere to their policies. Remember that the auditors and the assessors of our quality status felt that our financial practices were excellent. This authority, you'll notice from the next item when we come to it about the annual return, that once again, for 11 years in a row now, we've received an unqualified audit with no comments this year. So we're doing something right when it comes to processing our finances. But yes, I think there's one or two ways in which we could seek to get out of. It does seem rather Dickensian to be processing much of our payments through this sort of cheques format. And there are things that can go wrong. People lose cheques get lost in the post, cheques don't get cashed in within the 6-month requisite period and then have to be reissued. So yes, I think we would very much welcome moving to a more digitized form of making payments if we can. But I do emphasize to you, it has to be with the approval of the auditors that we are satisfying all of our local government requirements, which are far more stringent than a company dealing with its own finances. We have to be because of our requirements for transparency.
Thank you. With the permission of the chair of the GMC, could I ask if it could be reported back to GMC at the next GMC meeting to see if there's been any progress on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not hearing you very well. I'm sorry, Simon, I'm not hearing you very well.
I said that with the permission of the chair of the GMC, could we ask the clerk to report back to GMC at the next meeting, see if there's any progress in moving to faster payments as opposed to cheque payments?
Yes, thank you very much. I agree to that. Yes.
Okay, we're going to go to Councillor Kaza, followed by Councillor Butchins. Councillor Kaza.
Yeah, thanks. I was about to ask the same question. Can we have some commitment that by the next meeting, we'll stop issuing cheques?
I can't do that. No, that's. I think that, in fairness, Mr. Mayor, I think the timescale of transition into a
3 months
payment by the next meeting, even to set that up with our bank, the Metro Bank, I think is going to require more time, and even more so given that we're working remotely and it's hard enough to deal with the bank. I was on the waiting for 45 minutes on Metro Bank today to process the staff salaries. So with the best will in the world, I can't commit the council to move to what Councillor Carser is asking for by the time of the next meeting. I don't believe that's reasonable.
Thank you. I think it's enough that Councillor.
Can I have one more second? Can we say 6 months? Because we must be the only town council issuing checks, because I have not received a single check from any.
Councillor Carver, we've agreed that the clerk will report back to GMC on progress at the next GMC meeting. And I think that's the best way forward, because it's not within the clerk's hands how long it takes to move on to. He's got to work with Metro Bank. So I think it's a little bit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're not the only town council issuing checks.
No, we're not.
Just to remind Councillor Carser what I said previously, people who have assessed our financial practices have deemed them to be excellent. That's the external auditors and the assessors of our quality status. So.
Thank you.
If you offer some help, if you need some help from Metro Bank, I'm willing to help.
Thank you. Councillor Butchins.
Yeah.
Thank you. My question is for our estimable clerk, Hugh. Do we know of other authorities who actually have moved over to not using cheques? And if so, have we asked them for any advice or guidance?
I think the answer to that question is going to take up too much of this council time this evening. But in short, yes, it's a matter I have discussed some time now with both internally with officers and externally with the county association that we use for advice. It's something we definitely want to. Nobody would like to do it more than I would. But it needs to be done properly, it needs to be done legally, and it needs to be done in a way which is going to protect the council and protect officers as well, that there's no possibility of any misunderstanding when it comes to making payments, which have to, our financial practices are transparent, they have to be seen to be transparent, and officers need to be seen to be acting without blemish, and in a way that they can feel comfortable reflects their own professional integrity as well.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Butler, followed by Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very quick, just to let you know, South Mims Parish Council have already done this. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Butler.
They have, South Mims have probably, how many checks do South Mims? How many payments do South Mims?
There are 4 councillors.
Yeah, exactly.
In a year. Oh, we have to be realistic. Come on.
Still the same number of checks in the book, I'm afraid.
We need to compare apples with apples here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Newmark.
Yeah, look, Councillor Carser is an experienced banker, and I do think it's unedifying to see the way in which he was just shouted down. I would like to point that out. I do think he makes a valid point in terms of the need for a timeline here. I appreciate that it's not within the gift of the town clerk to be able to give a commitment this evening, but Councillor Carser is absolutely right to say we should set an aspirational time to complete this imperative. It's clearly the wish of the council. It's clearly the direction that the entire world is moving in right now. And I think that Councillor Carser made an important point and a reasonable timeline of 6 months. And I think we should agree this evening to aspire to move away from using cheques within the next 6 months. If that's not achievable, the clerk can come back to us and tell us, but we shouldn't leave decisions open-ended. We should try and put a timeline on things. And I do propose that we agree that we aspire to achieve this change within 6 months. If there's a good reason that we can't, the clerk can come back and advise us.
I'm going to let Councillor Parnell answer this one as chair of GMC. Councillor Parnell.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't agree with what you've just said, Councillor Newmark, at all. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to ask somebody to put a timeline on. Now, we are going to do it. We are moving over to it. Where are we? We're not in the government, Councillor Newmark. We are here at local town council. We do not need any kind to have a time limit on it. Our clerk is quite professional enough to get this done. And I think it's quite insulting to think he wouldn't get it done in a reasonable time. And it will take it. We've asked our clerk to get it done. He will get it done, but I will not support that.
Thank you, Councillor Parnell. Okay, Councillor Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, that's a first for me, being on a Zoom meeting and being shouted at in my own home by Councillor Parnell. I wonder what the residents think in their own homes, having councillors shout down the screen at them. Now, as we've just heard, South Mimms has 4 councillors. 4 councillors without resources that Elstree and Borehamwood Town Council has. How can they be leading the way? How can we be following them? 6 months is, 180 something days away. We could do this. Listen, I know Metro Bank. You could go into Metro Bank and something could be done in a day, let alone 6 months. It's really sad that we're demeaning another authority by saying they've only got 4 councillors, that we're shouted at in our own homes, and the way that Councillor Prabhakar is spoken to is not acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Vince. I'm going to go to Councillor Strack, followed by Councillor Rennie. Councillor Strack.
I object to all of this that's being said. We had agreed at GMC that we would be moving to using cheques, and we would do it, and we would expect our town clerk and staff will move as quickly as possible. They've never worked in any other way. I'm not shouting, I'm stating, and that is a fact.
Councillor Rennie, followed by the clerk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue of paying electronically, I don't know how it's generating such a long debate. You've said already that the clerk should look into it, report to GMC, and we take it from there. 6 months could be too long, it could be too short. So why not we move forward from here and let the clerk do his job, and we move on. You may be surprised, it will take a month to be sorted out. Let him go and check and come back to us. So if we can move on, please. I think we're just debating what shouldn't be debated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Jones, the clerk, Hugh Jones, sorry.
Not elected, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, first of all, I'll give the members full guarantee that it's never, to be fair to you, you've never pressed so hard for this before. It's never been seems to be such a burning issue amongst you. But yes, I'll give you a guarantee that if it can be done sooner than 6 months, then I'll do it sooner than 6 months. I'll look into how we can move onto this electronic payment, but it has to be, I've said for maybe 4 or 5 times now, with the relevant safeguards, and that's safeguards for staff as well, so that staff can be seen to be acting appropriately. There's no area for discrepancy there. I don't know if members were referring to me when they described how Councillor Kaza was spoken to. If that is the case, I apologise to you, Councillor Kaza, if I spoke down to you. That certainly wasn't my intention to do so. I also apologise if it was apparent that I was speaking down to South Mimms Parish Council. I have great respect for all of my neighbouring parish councils, and the point was simply that one's not comparing like with like when it comes to a budget of Elstree and Borehamwood Town Council, when we're processing many hundreds of cheques and many hundreds of payments throughout the year, with a budget of nearly £500,000, compared to that which South Mimms is doing, which is far easier to. So a transition from one to the other is much harder for an authority of our size, given the type and the quantity of payments that we have to process throughout a year. So I just wish to clarify those points, but certainly if there's any discourtesy or grievance taken in the way that I have spoken this evening, I give my unreserved apologies.
Thank you. Okay, now can we approve the accounts for payments then, please? Can we approve these accounts?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, so these have been approved. Item number 7, annual return 2019-20, to receive and approve the annual governance and accountability return for the year ended 31st of March 2020, as compiled by internal and external auditors, noting unqualified audit with no recommendations for the council to take. The annual return is attached, and I think we need to thank the clerk and the deputy clerk for all the work that they do in managing the town council's accounts. Before we agree with that, I don't know, would the clerk like to make any comments regarding item number 7 on the agenda?
Just for the sake of clarity, Mr. Mayor, yes, this has come slightly later than usual. It's usually the previous meeting that considers this, presumably because of COVID. It's come back later from the external auditor, just so that you can formally receive this document. So you've seen, it's not the first time you've seen it. Yes, just for the minutes book, it needs to be formally adopted this evening.
Colleagues, can we adopt the annual return for 2019-20? Are we agreed on the annual return?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Item number 8, the annual parish meeting. To consider arrangements and style of the annual parish meeting, which is scheduled for the 3rd of March 2021. I'm going to start with the clerk, if Hugh James doesn't mind, because obviously this is a coronavirus year. I'm not so sure whether in March we'll be able to have an actual meeting. So I suppose we potentially need a plan A for an actual meeting and a plan B, which seems to me at the moment the most likely form of meeting, which is a virtual annual parish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, having spoken to the committee chairman and yourself last week, it seemed that the intention was to propose a virtual annual parish meeting this year, and to maybe take half a page or even a full page of the next Town Crier publication in trying to drum up local residents to attend such a Zoom meeting. Whether that would take form as a meeting or a webinar is in your hands to decide, and that it may be appropriate, given that because of the low numbers that turned up to the last community safety meeting, to cancel the community safety meeting that was planned in January, and also the environment and planning meeting that was planned in January, but not the one in February, and to have instead a big annual parish meeting where we can try and encourage as many members of the public to attend as possible, to have their say, not on council services. The annual parish meeting is a very different type of meeting whereby electors can talk about anything which they believe is of interest to them in their area. That's what's proposed here this evening, so we go for a virtual meeting, and simply to throw it open to members to say, how would you like the meeting to run? What instructions do you have for officers?
I'm going to go with the permission of the group leaders. I'm going to go with the group leaders first to comment. So I'll start with Councillor Strack, only because it's ladies first, and then we'll move over to Councillor Butler. Councillor Strack.
Right, thank you very much. Yes, I think it's obviously it would be a very different kind of meeting. I've already asked that the Youth Council would have an input to this meeting. I think it's important to encourage our young people to take part and to tell us what they've done, and speak about what they think about for the future. There are a whole host of things that have happened, even in spite of lockdown, that we can promote, that the Town Council has been involved in. We've worked with lots of partners across the last year, and I think we need to celebrate that. So many things that we had planned couldn't go ahead, of course, because of the COVID restrictions, but there were many virtual events that took place. And thank you for Dan, and thank you to the other staff that made that possible. So I think that we should be able to show those kind of things. I think we should also be showing, as we have in the past, what the mayor has been doing over the last, and I imagine it won't be the same as in the past because of the COVID restrictions, but I'm sure that we can celebrate the newly decorated hall, the VE Day and the VJ, the switch on, the menorah lighting, the literary event, so many things, the benches, and so many things that we plan to do in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, to try and get and encourage members of public to attend a town meeting online, it's a hard one to do. However, we're fortunate enough still to have a lot of groups and organisations even now active and using online social media platforms to work from. So I'd encourage the town to actually invite along key representation from places like the new WD6 food support, ask them to maybe give a report about how they set up during the pandemic and, you know, how they're dealing with handing out food parcels to members of the public. Again, you know, we've got the gratitude as well. You could ask them to come along and give a report. So there's groups and organisations like that. We could also ask Allen Lane, Allen Manor again to come along and give a report of what they've been doing. To encourage people like that to come along, and it will then also encourage their members to log on as well to see how their colleagues are doing, and it then creates that networking group where people will then listen to what other groups and organisations have been up to. So there are avenues to encourage members of the public, and even if this is members of the public that aren't living in Elstree and Bournemouth town, because a lot of these organisations do have people from outside our town but are actively involved in our town. So I think that's a way to get people engaged. Also to use again social media platforms to advertise the Zoom login details earlier, not later, as soon as possible. We've got plenty of Facebook groups that represent Elstree and Borehamwood in their own capacity, and I think we should be using those platforms with the permission of the admins, which I'm sure we could use, write a private letter to through the emails, and ask them if we can advertise one-off advertisement to encourage people to use this chance to be able to talk to their local representatives, listen to the local representatives, and also hear what other organisations and groups are doing. However, the bigger it gets, obviously, then becomes time limitation to them to deliver a report. But then we'll leave that down to you, Mr. Mayor, to be able to manage that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Would anybody else like to comment, Councillor Newmark?
Yeah, thank you, excuse me. I actually think that holding the annual parish meeting online is a real opportunity rather than a problem because of the COVID scenario. I think it's an opportunity to reach out to a much wider cross-section of the public than we're normally able to, because all we're asking them to do is to click on a Zoom link on their computer to attend. We're not asking them to traipse out to Fairway Hall on a dark, cold evening. And I really think we should embrace that opportunity to promote the town council and the integral role that we play and the work that we do around this area. So, you know, I do think that we should not just promote the Zoom link really from now with the time and date and so on social media. I think we should consider paid social media and electronic advertising for this. I think that we should, I mean, obviously put a sort of half page in the town crier, but in the spirit of reaching out to a wider and broader group, I think we should involve the youth council, but we should also involve the youth council in asking them to promote the meeting to their colleagues in the schools and colleges around the town, and ask them to engage and participate as individual young people in the area, and we should tailor the agenda accordingly. So I think this is an exciting opportunity. We should see it as a plank of the PR and promotional activity for the town council. It should have a young, exciting focus, and we really should get the publicity out onto social media sort of now, so that we have a good sort of 8 to 10 week lead-in period.
Thank you very much, Councillor Newmark, Councillor Parnell. But first, I just want to state that personally, I would prefer an actual meeting, but then I'd be very happy, if that's legal, obviously, but I would be very happy to do a hybrid actual and a Zoom at the same time. So we're filming from Fairway Hall, which would allow those that want to attend if legal at the time, and those that would rather watch it on Zoom from the comfort of their homes to watch it on Zoom as well, which will allow those that are not au fait with technology to come if they could, and those that are au fait to watch it on Zoom. Councillor Parnell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Newmark, I just want to just give you some information. For many years, I've been asking the youth councillors if they could ask their friends to come along and see what it's like on the youth council. So it has been promoted. There were a lot more on the youth council, but they had exams, and they, well, you know, a lot of them go to Yavna, and they have a very hard curriculum there. I think they do, don't they?
Yeah, they're under a lot of pressure to deliver exam results.
They are. So they had a lot of work to do, and so they dropped out. But these four, there's five now, but four of them have stuck at it. And I ask them every time I see them out, and I ask them, don't forget to ask your friends. What else can you do? I've asked them for years, because I was the councillor that was with the youth council when there was 15 of them there. So we will get them back. It just takes time. But thank you for those comments. That
yeah, I wasn't talking about expanding the size of the youth council. I was talking about generally getting young people to engage with the annual parish meeting.
Yeah, but it would be great, wouldn't it, Councillor Newmark, if we could get more people, youth councillors.
Indeed, but one step at a time, I think. Yeah.
So what I will say is, historically, like Councillor Parnell, I was also the councillor on the youth council for about 4 years, and historically, youth councillors, at least the chair and the vice chair of the youth council, have attended our annual parish meetings. Are there any other comments to make regarding the annual parish? So what have we agreed? What so far have we agreed to do? Are we going to agree something here, or are we going to defer it for entertainments to look at, or potentially GMC? Where do we move from here on this, colleagues? Councillor Strack.
I think that we work with you to draw up a programme for the evening. Many of the things that have been suggested this evening are things that are done as a matter of course in any case, but it is useful to encourage young people. It's nice to tell you that there are a group of young people at Hartswood now who are called ambassadors, and they were Corina Best, who some of you might remember worked for Hertsmere Borough Council, is working with these young people in a virtual and Zoom fashion until such time as she's able to expand what work she does with Hartswood School. So yes, there are lots of exciting things happening, and I think that we could look at many of the organisations that we have had in the past, and some of the new ones too. So I think we compile a list and see which organisations will give us brief reports.
So would it be an idea potentially, because obviously I attend entertainments, the deputy mayor attends entertainments, your chair your chair of entertainment,
we could do it
would it be an idea would it be an idea for entertainments to look at the annual parish? Would that work?
With the clerk's agreement and with the
clerk's agreement, would that work?
Strictly speaking, the Entertainments Committee's terms of reference don't cover the proceedings for the annual parish meeting. I think something really needs to be emphasised, just to clarify something Councillor Newmark was making about it being an opportunity to promote the good work of the town council.
Yeah.
And we're encouraged not to do that at the annual parish meeting. At our annual meeting, yes, of course, and in our annual reports. But at the purpose of the annual parish meeting, as I said, is very distinct. In many cases, the councillors stop sitting in their usual seats. It's just simply chaired by the mayor and clerked by the town clerk. The members turn up as residents, if you like. The intention is not to discuss town council business, but anything that is on the minds that's relevant to the residents of Elstree and Boreham Wood. And in fact, the attendance and ability to speak is limited to those people on the electoral roll in Elstree and in Boreham Wood, not for other people. I'd like to caution members perhaps against coming up with a definitive list of speakers, especially for this meeting. In the past, as you know, we've had, I think one year we had 24 speakers, didn't we? Where we had people coming up to the podium and giving a short 3 minutes spiel about the good work that their organisations were undertaking, which was excellent. I think that's going to be difficult to achieve this year. I'd like to ask that if members think that they have got other groups like the DW6 food group and the gratitude group, can they refer them on? They let them, not the office, refer them on. I mean, it's one thing to say for these things to be shared on social media, but I would encourage members, members were asked to share the Christmas switch on video on social media, but not that many members actually went ahead and did that. So please, you are the closest to the residents in Elstree and Bournemouth, and I'd put the pressure on you a little bit to share that information. But I think it would be good to have perhaps a half-page article in the next Town Crime magazine, which everybody will get, and it to be a useful opportunity for people just to come and speak their minds of whatever interests them, and the Town Council to be a facilitator of that, rather than us to be the Delphi, the Oracle at Delphi. We're answering everybody's questions. That's not the intention of the annual parish meeting, but rather to act as a facilitator for the community to come together once a year.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I mean, how we need to decide, Councillor Collins.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. I would suggest that we as councillors, we have so many we have various groups within our various constituency, and what we could do, we could engage with these groups and ask them to bring about issues that relate to them, and so that they will be able to come about and express themselves, and this will create a platform where the town council is engaging with the public, and people are going to come about and express themselves, and this will popularize ourselves within our various constituency. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. So let's agree. Are we going to do this? Are we going to have a virtual or an actual annual parish? 100% virtual. Councillor Strack, followed by Councillor Rennie, and then Councillor Butler.
I just want to echo Councillor Strack. I think let's plan for virtual as this timing point. We don't know where the pandemic is taking us and the lockdown. And if anything changes, probably we do a hybrid as you suggested. But meanwhile, let's focus on doing it virtual.
Thank you. Councillor Strack.
Sorry, I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Okay. I think Councillor Butler, then Councillor Chalice indicated she wants to speak as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, I agree with Councillor Ennie there and Councillor Strack that, yeah, it should be virtual. The risk of repeating everything they've just said there, Mr. Mayor, but I would also point out the fact that, we should still have the town council staff supporting town councillors. It shouldn't just be for the town councillors to go to these groups and organisations. It's we either want this to be successful online and encourage members of the public from all areas and groups to participate or at least observe. If not, it's going to be a flop. And actually all we'll do is have the same old people turn up again. I quite take on board what's been said tonight. Yes, one year we did have 24 organisations attend who, again, had a limited time. And I remember us drawing numbers on slots, straws or whatever it was from the hat and then allowing them to speak. But that just shows you the quantity of organisations we have in a town of our size. And actually, I think that's a great thing that actually when we have too many people to speak. So, but I still believe that we should have more people to participate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Chalice, followed by Councillor Parnell.
I was just going to say, I feel really strongly that we need to look at this as being a wholly virtual thing. Let's be realistic about the queues that we're seeing in terms of when people get vaccines alone. We don't need a background in science to realise that this is not going away, but we can make the most of it. And I think that's a really key thing. Let's make the most of this situation. I think even the very notion that would be doing something with people coming into the hall when it's just very clear that that's not going to be the case is quite, yeah. Let's focus on what we can do and the positives and what this town council does well at, and let's focus on that.
Thank you, Councillor Chalice. Councillor Parnell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. But we've just gone through that the annual parish meeting isn't usually attended by organisations. It's a full council meeting that we want to invite everybody, that we can celebrate. This is really to just go through the year that we've had for councillors, and it's chaired by the mayor, and we sit in rows of seats, and it's not one that we've ever invited. I've never known it to have invited guests on the annual parish meeting. I don't know if I'm right. Am I right?
No, you're wrong.
Hugh, can you answer that, please, for me?
I'm loath to contradict members at a full council meeting.
Okay.
The annual parish meeting.
I don't remember an annual parish meeting being full.
I think you might be confusing the annual parish meeting with the annual council meeting.
Right.
And so yes, we do have.
Okay.
But we don't. What I was proposing is that I think it might be difficult to have a list of designated speakers at this meeting coming up. Given that, and of course I agree with Councillor Butler that it should be for both officers, but not just officers, for members as well, to try and share this information.
I stand corrected.
With the community and encourage attendance. Quite often, actually, I think the year before I started here at the parish council meeting, there was one member of the public attending the annual parish meeting, and it's recorded that the meeting lasted 5 minutes. It was a source of amusement at the time to the council that was the case. Since that time, we regularly have 50 or 60 members attending the meeting, and as Councillor Butler's acknowledged, we had 24 speakers only a couple of years ago. So, we've come on leaps and bounds, and it's been certainly an ambition of mine to enhance the annual parish meeting in the way that I think that it's intended to do so, as set out in the statute book.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
There should be no difference. But what I don't want to do is propose that we're too prescriptive about who's coming and who's speaking when and so on. I think perhaps a bit more of a free-flowing meeting might be in order in this particular year.
Councillor Vince.
I'm not, no, I'm just.
Oh, sorry, I thought you put your hand up.
Last time.
Okay, Councillor Newmark.
Yeah, I'm unclear now as to exactly what we're agreeing. I mean, there's been an awful lot of talk over the past 10, 15 minutes, but we've got this annual parish meeting scheduled for about 6 weeks' time. What really matters is publicising it. It seems that the clerk's got a very clear idea of the format it should take. So when will we have some materials and Zoom links that we can start to share on social media? Can we have that during the course of this week? Because this meeting's only 6 weeks away and we need to let people know about it.
Well, I was going to wait till members decided what they wanted to do at this.
Well, sorry if I can come in. You've set out clearly what you feel the
I haven't.
Format of. So sorry, you have, because you said this should be a free-flowing meeting which involves members of the public, not organisations. We've agreed as a council that it should be a virtual meeting. And with respect, what that leaves is for us to ascertain how we're going to publicise it and how we're going to get members of the public to attend a virtual meeting with free-flowing participation, which means we need material, we need Zoom details, and we need to get it out there. I think it's straightforward.
Councillor Strack.
I think it's the format that it has taken in the past is a very good one. We normally, councillors and staff invite local organisations to take part. We don't know all of the organisations, so it's up to councillors to, new organisations have been formed, especially in the time of COVID. So it would be useful for members to ask people if they would like to speak or to tell us what they've been doing during the course of the past year. and it is also an opportunity to celebrate what the mayor has done and what has happened in the town in that time. And so I think that the format which has been used before is we have had a short video of what the mayor has been doing, and I think that that is one of the tenets of what we start with. And we've looked at, nearly always we've had youth councillors come along. Usually the chair speaks and the others come along to support. Well, there's no reason why they can't come on in Zoom and speak to us. They're very competent young people, and I'm sure that we can work together to, but we have to get some kind of a schedule in place before we start advertising, I would think. And I think it's going to take a few days for that to happen, but I don't think it would take that long because we have very good and close links. Just think of the outside bodies that we've just talked about. I mean, they're not the only ones, I know, but there are, but we as councillors have lots of links already. So I think that we can, if the town clerk is happy to compile this for us.
Well, members, I'm happy to upload a link to Zoom tomorrow and share that with members, which can be shared with whoever you like. So I can, in terms of setting up the Zoom, would you like it as a webinar or as a meeting?
So I suggest, my suggestion is that we have our standard format of the annual parish meeting, but in a virtual manner as opposed to an actual manner. I would think that potentially a webinar, set up as a webinar, just like the full council meetings, there's a webinar, and those people that want to speak moved on to Zoom as has been done in the past.
In which case, if it's helpful and given the necessity to act quickly for the 6 weeks period, I'll be happy to send out an agenda tomorrow and a webinar link tomorrow to all members.
Are we agreed on that?
Yeah.
Councillor Strack? Councillor Strack?
Sorry, Councillor Turner had a hand up.
Sorry, I can't see you, Councillor Turner.
Sorry.
Councillor Turner.
It's just, we have to remember this should be a local thing. It's so nice in the past we've given prizes at that occasion from the allotments. I know they don't sound very important, but they're very important to the people, and they're our residents. We're not a big showy thing. It's for our people, and definitely there must be something for the NHS and all the people that work. But I think that goes without saying. I'm sure Hugh will come back with a wonderful programme, and we'll all work at it, and it'll be very successful.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Strack.
There's just one more group really that need to speak this year. It's been a very important year for the Royal British Legion, and I think it would be good to invite them to come along and speak very briefly about the various celebrations that couldn't take place. And I think that's an important group to invite along.
Could I just ask, would it be appropriate to invite a minister of religion to say a few words in like a non-denominational thing in memory of those people that have passed away since the last annual parish due to COVID?
I think it would be very nice.
Yeah.
Personally.
Are members okay with that if we invite one of the local ministers to say a few words?
Why not?
Mr. Mayor, what about someone from the multi-faith group?
Well, I was thinking mainly potentially maybe something like the Reverend War or something to come.
Well, we can ask the chair of the multi-faith group, and also there is a local interfaith forum, which I'm happy to approach them and see if that's some one or they might come and support each other just by being there.
I mean, for me personally, although I'm not, for me, the official religion of this country is Church of England. I would have thought be more appropriate for the Church of England minister to say a few words. I mean, that would be my personal opinion.
But it's
right.
to all religions, Simon.
I know, but the official religion, we have an official religion in this country, the Church of England. So,
Mr. Mayor, can I just interject, please? Because I hear what you're saying, and I think it's a good idea. But I hear the members' views here as well. I think it would be good actually if you were to invite Tim War, for instance. And I appreciate what you're saying. You know, that's the sort of that sort of guide of religion, but we do have a very big Jewish population in the area and also a Muslim population and so forth growing. So I think, you know, we do have these contacts. We do have the faith group that meet up to celebrate all sort of religions. We can invite all of those ministers along to observe and so forth, and just invite one of them to speak. One might want to speak, the others don't, but we should be encouraging all these people to come along and at least observe. And if you as Mayor would like to ask Tim to say a few words, I would not have any objections with that, but it's the way we could do it. And also I'd like to just say, while I've got the floor, if I may, Mr. Mayor, what about also the clerk's obviously saying that we can invite people as councillors. So if I was to invite someone from the LGBTQ plus advocate as well to say something about what they've been doing, and also last year we had Black Lives Matter marches as well around the town. I think, you know, people should be able to speak about things that have been happening in their own areas. Granted, you might have too many speakers, but there are people out there, you know, to want to speak about things that have been very important to them over the last year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So the whole point of the parish council is democracy and free speech. So, you know, we can invite and we could in effect decide how many speakers we want to have, and it's first come, first served. I'm first and foremost a Democrat, and therefore I welcome anybody that has, any representative of a mainstream organisation. I'll happily invite them to speak. I'll happily invite any minister of religion to come, although I am on the opinion that if a minister is going to speak, it should be a minister of the Church of England, for the simple reason that is the official faith of this country. I think that's the right thing to do, but that's my opinion. Do we have any other opinions on this, Councillor Vince?
Just a thought, Mr. Mayor. The Reverend Louise Collins has done an awful lot for the Cowley Hill ward, especially during the period. So maybe it would be a consideration possibly to ask her.
Well, I don't understand how the Church of England works, as I'm a heathen. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how it works. Do we have to ask? I don't know. I thought maybe we need to ask Reverend War first, who will ask. I don't know how it works. So I'm easy on that one. Councillor Strack.
Well, in actual fact, Reverend Tim War is the leader of the Church of England in this town, so it would be appropriate to ask him to speak. And but I do think I'll speak to him, and I'm fairly sure that he would say that it is something that we should look across faith rather than into one faith. So I'll speak to him tomorrow and see what his view is. We don't want to overload this to become we want a meeting that people can enjoy, and we don't want it to become too heavy. It is a celebration of what we've achieved and what organisations have achieved, especially in this very, very difficult year. They've all worked hard, they've all done something in their different ways, and it would be really good to find out what they've done.
So, sorry, Chair, we were just advised by the clerk that this isn't the meeting that's meant to be a celebration of what we have achieved, and that the purpose of this meeting is to enable electors, to allow electors or voters to have their say on anything that they consider to be important local issues. We were advised by the clerk that this isn't the meeting at which we have organisations coming to speak, and yet after that, we've heard from sort of the leader of the council and their group that are now agreeing with what I said initially, that there should be a celebration of our work, and was told was not the moment to do that. So I'm very confused about the nature of the debate we've had. I don't think we have a consensus or a conclusion. And Mr. Mayor, I think that it's important we now focus this conversation and actually ascertain what the outcomes are, what is going to happen next, and when, because it seems to me that people are just sort of repeating the same mantras and we're not actually making any progress.
So, Councillor, first of all, may I respectfully ask that people speak via the chair. Secondly, I think we have agreed we're going to invite members of the public to come and speak. That's what the annual parish is about. It's about democracy. If your neighbour wants to come and speak to complain about parking in his or her road, that's what annual parish is about. If somebody's miffed because their dustbin wasn't collected on the Monday morning before the parish meeting, it's their right to come and speak and complain about it. That's what the annual parish is about. And it's also, and this is also about organisations to come and tell us what they'll be doing, publicising themselves. And I'll be delighted if we have as many organisations as possible, especially charities, coming to annual parish, telling us what they've been up to. And I'd also be delighted to hear people that have got something that's annoying them to use that opportunity to get it off their chest. There's nothing better than sitting or virtually sitting in front of a group of councillors where you can moan about parking, speeding, refuse collection, or whatever you want, because that is what the parish council is about. So I think that what we've agreed to do is we're going to have a webinar. The town clerk is going to publicise as soon as possible the link to the webinar, and then we are going to invite people to come to view the webinar and also to come and speak. I think we've agreed on what we're going to do. And I'm going to end this, and I'm going to move on now to the last item on the agenda, item number 9, public participation. 15 minutes of the meeting will be given over to questions from members of the public relating to town council business. Do we have anybody wishing to speak? So could you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't go on about the annual parish meeting. I think the first half of what Councillor Newmark said was correct. The second half, I think a slightly different view on, insofar as that people will be invited. We invite many people, over 50 or 60 a year. Councillor Chris Gray is in the attendees. I think he can indicate to me if he wants to, by showing his hand, whether he wants to speak. He doesn't seem to have done that. I'm not an expert with webinars, but I can promote him to a panelist. Perhaps I could ask any of the members, is Councillor Chris Gray indicating to any of you that he wishes to speak? Don't want to speak, he says. He's messaged to say he doesn't want to speak.
Good. Do we have any other speakers?
There's nobody else, Mr. Mayor.
So I'm going to move on to item number 10, to close the meeting, just to say that the annual parish meeting, which is a statutory meeting, is scheduled for Wednesday, the 3rd of March at 7:30 p.m. It's going to be on a Zoom webinar, and it's an opportunity for electors to have their say on anything they consider to be important to the people of Elstree and Bournemouth. So, colleagues, any of your neighbours, friends, people who run charities, please, if they want to say something, this is democracy at work. It's their chance. The next meeting of the full council is scheduled for Wednesday, the 10th of March at 7:30 p.m. on Zoom webinar. It's the last council meeting of the municipal year. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you all a happy and healthy 2021. I hope we can defeat the coronavirus as quickly as possible, and to thank Hugh Jones and Dan Salter for managing the meeting today. And I look forward to seeing you all in the not too distant future.
Thank you very much.